Welcome to Let's Stay Together Talk. We're glad you guys are on board with us tonight. And Tracy, I'm glad you're on board too. How are you doing today?
I'm glad to be here. I'm doing great.
Well, that's good to know. So we got a great show with you guys tonight. Thanks for riding the McCain train. Why? Because to see God's glory, we must share our backstories. And tonight, our topic on the McCain train is all about heartaches and heartbreaks, disappointments in love. You could blame breaking up on your ex, but what's really making your heart and body ache is coming from within you. So let's get it together. Tonight, our special guest on the Next Stop segment is Dr. Janice Hodges, LCPC, Certified Pastoral Psychotherapist, also known as Deaf Therapy. So I want you guys to call in as well at 312-754-4333 or listen on Facebook and join us. So what you got to say, babe?
I'm going to say is, Janet, are you there?
I am here. Thank you so much for having me, Pastor Rick McCain and Mrs. Author Brenda McCain. It's been a while getting together, but I'm glad to be here.
Great. So, Janet, we're talking about heartaches and heartbreaks, the disappointment of love. You know, love always seems to have its, shares of disappointment. And I know the easy question is why, but I'm going to ask that easy question. Why do we have so much heartaches and heartbreaks and relationships?
That's a really good question. The reason why we more often have heartbreaks and challenges in relationships is because relationships, especially the intimate ones, help us to grow as a person. And so as we relate to another individual, the one we love, the man, the woman we love, we also have to look back at ourselves. And we have to hear from this other person how they see us. And it forces us to grow in ways that we may not really want to grow, didn't expect to grow. Now, that's when it's working in the most healthy way. Obviously, there's some times in some relationships where people say things to one another that aren't necessarily true and are mean and, and it goes down the line from there. But a relationship, first of all, is difficult to maintain anyway.
Yes.
And so we have to come into this love of life and relationship with another person knowing that, there's going to be some hard times. It's not easy. We love those stories, whether it's our fairy tales that we kind of keep with us in the back of our minds when we're little for the girls, like Cinderella or Snow White or something like that. Even though we have that in the back of our minds, the reality is relationships are not easy to maintain. It takes work.
A lot of work. But why is it, Dr. Janice, when, especially with the females, when they have a breakup or a heartbreak or whatever we want to call it tonight, heartaches, why is it so detrimental to our body?
Now, it ought not be detrimental to our bodies. Now, that's going to take us to another place. Now, the question is, and that goes back to us who are being impacted that way. So if we find ourselves in a relationship and we're feeling hurt by what someone said, did, or maybe they left the relationship, and we have some pain in our bodies, then that's a red flag. We need to find out for ourselves, why am I taking it this hard? Why am I having migraines? Because then we know we're moving into deep waters. Mm-hmm. We don't want to be in those waters. Now, breakups are disappointing. They hurt. But it ought not make us ache and then ache indefinitely. Then we know we have a bigger problem.
Janice, what happens a lot of times, I figure people, it may not physically bother them, but in relationships when we have breakups, it does emotionally bother us. I know a long time ago, be honest, I know most men don't want to admit this, but when I had a breakup before, I actually lost about 60 pounds myself because I was so depressed by the breakup because I never wanted that to happen. Now, it wasn't psychologically, I didn't want to go through that, but it just seemed like my body automatically just went to a breakdown period where even though I was trying to get out, it was almost like the little engine that could, but I couldn't. I could never get out of that cycle of feeling depressed. Help somebody with that situation. They really want to get out of that heartache or heartbreak, but they just can't do it alone.
Again, we've got to understand we may be discussing different levels of heartbreak, and different levels happen based on our personal life experience. So, and then of course we got to take into account where people are in life. So now I am really grateful, and I am so glad, and I celebrate all the men that I've known in counseling during the course of my ministry, and who share openly with me their heartbreak and the challenges they face. Mm-hmm. Now, having said that, it's real important to feel what you feel. Depression is sadness, which you know, but it's also anger.
Yes.
And then also those kinds of feelings can hinge on something that has happened before in your life, way before in your life. Now, you may have heard that little legend that could. The most important time of your life is between ages of birth and 7 years old. And so when people are willing to work with me more deeply on what's going on and their upsetness, then some weeks into our work, we're going to probably get back to, okay, so how is this familiar? Where have you experienced this before? I recently talked to someone whose spouse left. She left, and she's seeing another man, and you know how painful that is for a marital partner.
Right.
But what we discovered was that in his early life, his mom did the same thing. And so when he's a youngster, his mom left the household and got involved with someone else, not his dad. So, you know, that takes us back to that point in life, and then we got to look at what that meant for him early on. And I know somebody hears this and says, oh, no, I don't want to go back. But the reality is, sometimes we just got to go back and clean up some feelings and express some thoughts and get it out of the way, you know, just kind of sweep it out of the way so you can move forward. So now when you lose so much weight, then there's some conscious decision. Now, let me tell you, Pastor Rick and author Brenda, I can do a lot of talking, so let me know if I'm talking too much.
Okay.
But so when we're talking about the loss of weight, the question is, are you making a decision not to eat? Did the weight just fall off by itself?
I just wasn't hungry anymore, Janet, because I was depressed. I mean, it's just food was not something that I was thinking of. Now, you know, I was one of those persons that just never wanted to have a breakup. And so when it happened, it wasn't that I was consciously not thinking about eating. I just didn't.
Yes. Well, then again, the question is, how long did you not eat? Now, if you did not eat for a weekend, you'll be okay. But unless, of course, there's some health conditions that, you know, we got to be on top of, and we understand those health conditions such as diabetes, when you really just can't not eat. So at that point, if you feel, wow, I know I ought to be eating, but I don't want to eat, and I can't make myself eat, I won't make myself eat, then ideally you will kind of pull yourself up by the collar and say, let me just call for someone and who can support me through this. Ideally, a good friend will, but they may not be as objective, so ideally you will call a professional who can hear what's going on with you and also support you through the pain, and also encourage you to take good care of yourself otherwise, because the pain is not going to last. You know, it's rough in that moment, but as time moves on, that too will pass.
Yes.
Dr. Janice, why
yes.
is it that people do reflect back to their childhood when they're going through a heartbreak?
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear that.
Why is it that people who are going through a heartbreak reflect back to their past? Like you gave an analogy
yes.
of the guy that saw his mother do that. Why does history repeat themselves with them within their mind?
Yes. Well, actually, he did not come up with that. That was what I shared with him in my observation as he was speaking. Now, it's great if people are willing and able to go back and examine their lives way as far back as they can. That's great. But generally, it's good to have support and somebody can really help you examine that. But now, why does it even happen? Because home is where we start from. We cannot get past the reality that we start from the home we grew up in. And that's what impacted us. It is true. you marry or you're attracted to people who remind you of your mom, your dad, or a combination. In our community, if grandma reared us, or maybe even more important people in our extended family, those people factor in there too, so that the home we come out of shapes us. Now, can I give my little commercial? It is really important that you secure your home and family. Family is so important, and taking care of little children is so important and so sensitive, because whatever happens within their little lives from 0 to 7 is going to repeat itself for the rest of their lives, unless, of course, they do some self-investigation and begin to turn those patterns around, which takes commitment.
Hi, Dr. Janice. This is Tracy.
Hi, Tracy.
And this is a very sensitive subject for me, because actually a lot of people know this is the reason why I ended up on the show with Brenda and Rick. I was so depressed from having gone through a horrible divorce where I pretty much had a nervous breakdown. And you just touched me when you said that we have to make sure that we do something, because if we don't, we'll repeat the patterns. Mm-hmm. And I am so afraid, because I had 4 daughters who went through that experience with me as young children. And, what can women or even men do so that we don't repeat those patterns with our children?
Well, it is really sensitive, and you are very courageous to bring this up, Tracy, and you're very strong. You don't want to see patterns repeated. Now, everybody has to remember, people are human. None of us are perfect. In our human lives, we're going to find imperfect experiences and circumstances. All right, that's the way it is. None of us are God. So what we do when we encounter these imperfect experiences, it's up to us to find solutions for our healing. Whether we think we're hurting or not, we find our solutions. I really want to move us away from the media, because I think people really want to run right to the television and see what's on TV, and maybe I can get something from whatever I hear on the latest talk show. And there may be some truth in that, but there's not enough truth and not enough support for us in our regular lives and our ongoing everyday lives to support healthy growth and development beyond pain. So there's nothing wrong with the fact that these things happen. It's not your fault. You don't blame yourself. Life happens. What you are responsible for is making life better for yourself. You can't control a spouse who wants to leave, or a dad or a mom who want to leave. You likely have no control over that. What you can control is yourself as you respond to whatever happened. So now, let me rush to this. There is nothing wrong with seeking professional intervention. Once again, you've really got to figure out, though, that the person you're seeking professional intervention from is going to be someone not only who is competent to do the work with you, but also someone who cares about you, who knows your language, your tradition, your culture, and understands and is willing to commit to you as you work through whatever the problems are. So there's no shame in getting professional support. There's no shame in that.
I'm going to say to you, Janet, real quick, is that you're absolutely right about that. I know I was looking just at TV recently. They was talking about in Chicago, they had a counselor who that people are trying to sue now because he gave all the information out, and they're really upset about this person. He did not have credentials to be that counselor, and now he's giving out all information. So you do have to be very careful with the people that you share your information with.
Absolutely.
One of the things I will say also is that, when I went through the situation I went through, I was 18 years old. I'm like 55 now.
Oh, wow.
Thank you, Tracy.
Oh, no, I didn't realize you were so young.
Yeah, I was so young. But one of the things that I recognized when I got older, I became a little bit more wiser with, not allowing things to trouble me as much. Can you help somebody right now to give them maybe some examples of how they can go from being heartbroken into, being now triumphant and not concerned about the breakups?
You know what? I'm glad you asked. You got right to my point. I wanted to be sure not to miss this.
Yeah.
But let me say, when you're 18, that's going to be one experience of a broken relationship. When you're 55, that's a whole other experience.
Yes.
So we can't compare those two just based on life experience and circumstances and what one has learned, and et cetera. Now, I absolutely support intervention from mental health resources. Absolutely support it. It is very good for us. We benefit. Life becomes better in all kinds of ways. We make more money even. However, in mental health, that's better and more useful for us than a strong relationship with God and being within a church worship service, making use of faith resources. There is nothing that is more powerful than that. Now, somebody's going to say, okay, well, she says that because she's a pastor. Well, yeah, that's true, but it's also documented in science. And if somebody wants me to tell them where is that documented in science, let me rush and say, Bessel van der Kolk, who is a traumatologist. He is the clinician's go-to person on trauma and traumatic response. He has written that the very best intervention for trauma, hurt, pain, all of that kind of negative stuff is faith, worship, and faith resources. So let's own the gift we've been given as people and follow up with that.
Dr. Janice, for you to say that, one of my questions was, do you feel that whatever cheers the mind may help cure the body? And you just took us there where you could read up on that in the Word, because a lot of people think that, oh, God, how, like Rick was saying, had headaches and you was stressed, like what Tracy was saying, you take it so hard. And during my research, that cortisol that's released in your body and everything it'll go straight to your brain and send signals to your body to tense your muscles up. So it's like a whole different thing, from verbal speech to your muscles to getting your mind right. And a lot of people, like young people, take breakups so hard. It's just like that's the end of the world to them. Like you was saying, with over the years and everything, it's different when you 18 to 30. From 30 to 55, it's a different thing you see with a breakup. But as my husband said to you, you did answer that question in regards to what can someone do. But on a devil's advocate side, most people will say, okay, I know God got this, but that's the furthest thing from my mind right now.
Well, let me say that, Brenda, as the person who was put in a devil's advocate's position, Dr. Janice, I was trying to learn to be a better wife. I was in the middle of doing Bible study at my house, which my husband said, yeah, do it at the house. You got a bunch. While I was doing Bible study at the house to get closer to God, he was getting closer to somebody else. So I became angry with God.
Sure.
So
and it makes me think of the one who had a devoted friend and prayer partner, and lo and behold, she found out that this prayer partner was having an affair with her husband. Don't take me down that road. Yeah. We know this stuff happens. This stuff does happen. But we cannot lose sight of who God is in the midst of all this and who people are, so that we don't make people more important than God. So the husband, huge disappointment, especially if someone is also a devoted person of faith, a Christian, etc. Those are huge disappointments, but we want to be clear, and it takes time. We want to be clear, though, of how, put the boundaries in between what God is saying to us and what's going on in our human lives. And listen, and I'm not saying that people ought to feel guilty or ashamed that they are angry with God. That's fine. God can take it. Just go on, continue the conversation.
Amen.
Remember Psalm 55, my good friend betrayed me, right? The one I went to church with betrayed me. So, huge disappointment, trauma, none of that is new to God. But it's God who has the power to heal it. And I'm not trying to preach here, but that's the difference. That's the difference.
You're talking to a preacher, so preacher. Hey, you know what? I love that, and especially you giving the background for information where people can find that the Bible, the Word of God, is the greatest source of healing that mankind can ever have. And unfortunately, a lot of times we don't use that. But a lot of the poems and everything that has sprung from that, a lot of people don't know that it came from that Word of God. And it's amazing how just by reading that word can just go into your spirit and heal you more than anything else can. And so to say that, Pastor Janet, I'm excited that you did that. It says to me you're going to be back on our show again because I love a person that talks about, God. I want to be able to help somebody before we get off the air with you. How can they get in contact with you if they need some assistance?
Well, God bless you, and thank you for asking. Well, I can be reached at my office, of course, 773-752-GROW. You can find me pretty much everywhere in social media, LinkedIn, Inside Pastoral Care and Counseling for Ministers, or Janice C. Hodge on LinkedIn, or Janice C. Hodge on Facebook, and J.C. Hodge and Associates on Facebook. I don't really use Twitter that much, but I'm pretty easy to find.
Yeah.
Just put in Janice C. Hodge or J.C. Hodge. Remember Jesus Christ. Put in J.C. Hodge. But, and I want to rush to say this. The Bible is absolutely instrumental, but I don't want to stop there because I want to say our traditional music is really important because the rhythms help people heal in ways you can't even imagine. So yes, the amygdala, which is in the brain, which of course releases all these other hormones when one is stressed or feeling like fight or flight has to happen for you. Yeah, you want to find those ways to comfort beyond any human power. And I thank you for letting me say that.
Okay, you know what? We want to get to know you even better. Can I do what we want to do? McCain Express, 15 questions for the doctor. Is that okay for you?
I'm ready and willing to go anytime you want.
Okay, well, we're about to roll, Dr. Janice. If you had to choose between a Jaguar and a Benz, which one would you pick?
I think I would go for the Benz.
Were you a teacher's pet or a class clown?
Teacher's pet.
If you could live on the East Coast or the West Coast, which one?
East.
You're craving fast food chicken, Kentucky Fried or Popeyes?
Oh, Popeyes.
Yay! It's Friday night. Are you painting the town or watching your favorite show?
My favorite show.
All right. So what's your favorite singer, Gladys Knight or Aretha Franklin?
Uh-oh, that's too hard. That's too hard.
Respect yourself, huh? Midnight Train to Georgia.
Respect yourself. Well, I heard through the grapevine, keeping in tune with what we're talking about. Yeah, they're just great.
My wife throws this in there, and I got to have her to take this out. Who's your favorite? Who's your favorite host on the Let's Stay Together show, Rick or Brenda?
I love Rick and Brenda.
Smart.
Are you more excited about free tickets to the Super Bowl or World Series?
Super Bowl.
And I'm going to change this too. Would you rather vacation in Hawaii or Maui?
Can I get my own answer?
Aruba. There you go.
Aruba. I'll go for Aruba.
Thank you. I'm gonna check. She got Alaska.
No problem,
Mom. Go to Alaska. The last one I have is if you choose your one meat that you'd like to eat, would it be steak or chicken?
Ooh, I am not a meat lover, but I'll go for chicken more so than steak.
All right.
Okay. What would you change about yourself if you could? Would it be your weight or your hair?
Weight.
It's a milestone birthday, and there's a big party. Did you plan it, Janice, or did someone surprise you?
Someone surprised me.
You're a world-famous musician. Are you blowing the horn or playing the guitar?
Blowing the horn.
You get to be a superhero, Catwoman or Supergirl?
Oh, Catwoman.
Okay, and for the movie, which one would you choose? What Love Got to Do with It or Waiting to Exhale?
Uh-oh. Waiting to Exhale.
Oh, she like running up power.
Yeah.
Waiting to
Thank
Exhale.
you for playing McCain Express with us, and we truly enjoyed you.
Yes, Janice, once again, give us more give us the information again how people can contact you.
Contact me at grow@jchodge.com. Or my phone number, 773-752-4769. Or my website, jchodge.com. Same name on LinkedIn and Facebook.
Hey, thank you for spending time with Let's Stay Together Talk. You will definitely be back again on our show so you can give us some more detailed information about relationships, okay?
I'm honored. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, now. Bye-bye.
Right. So that was a great little segment there about heartbreak. And me and Tracy really just told us about our little breakup.
I know.
I got to get me some Kleenex now. Right? I'm telling you.
Yeah, because you two, y'all want to
Renee went through nothing.
I was thinking that too.
No, I think I told Tracy before. I'm like, I ain't crying over nobody no more. Those
She
days
the 10
over.
man.
Yeah, she is a 10 man.
That's because you ain't did nothing to her yet.
Yeah, I ain't did nothing.
It was wait a minute, there was a Brenda before Rick, and I'm like,
No, it wasn't.
No. I just came out the wound and went straight to you, huh?
That's what happened.
Yeah, stay with us, listeners, for our next segment, which was going to be really good. Coming up, we have a lovely lady on our show by the name of Leslie Holly that's going to be joining us. But right now, we want you to listen to our POV by Donna Terrell.
And we'll be right back with Motivational Mojo.